Hello, it's me again, Benjamin Wilford Brown. Today is September 21st, 2024. Um, it is the day of rest, and I'm here in Montreal. I just submitted my paperwork to file a appeal with the Federal Court of Appeal per the Supreme Court of Appeal rules, so that I could get so I can get my application for judiciary leave. I'm literally here. I'm literally the center of a global operation tied to some conspiracy that is intent on validating religious prophecies, tied to a human trafficking and drug trafficking network that is essentially um, artificially inseminating the women of the world with genetically engineered material and denying us the capacity to reproduce organically. And on top of denying us the capacity to reproduce organically, they're doing things like tainting our foods with things to make us heavy, and they're also inhibiting our cerebral development. The way that it looks now is that there aren't any scientists, any artists or writers, or even fighters and martial artists that don't have some sort of connection to some sort of state agency. And without those things, you're not allowed to practice martial arts. You're not allowed to be a writer. You're not allowed to be a painter. And you're not allowed to be artistic or things like that. Um, I don't really know why or how these things have kind of been allowed to me, but I'm capable of writing and I'm capable of drawing. Some of my poetry seems to be disrespectful towards my daughters and my sons, and some of it seems to be a little disrespectful towards me. Um, but I have the capacity to write in cooperation with a group of ghostwriters or with certain individuals that lurk me from Ghost. Um, there's stories that allude to things like that in the Torah, and there's stories that allude to those kinds of things within the Torah. And I'm basically here. My case was dismissed and redirected, which means I now have to take my case to Court, uh, the Supreme Court of Canada. Apparently, there's some sort of connection between the Supreme Courts of Canada and George W. Bush, who my father never seemed particularly fond of. And because my father was never particularly fond of him, I was never particularly fond of him. As you can see, my shirt says "Chinga up President Bush." And I'm relatively certain that my father was killed by means of a heart attack in his restroom because of the fact that he was somewhat outspoken against George Bush and the George W. Bush administration. Um, my dad had always been something of an outspoken, more liberal-minded individual. He got to go to Michigan State University on a football scholarship. And he had actually signed up for the ROTC program and had actually intended to be a part of the North American military. But something sort of derailed his interest in the military, and I guess there was some guy that he looked up to that had served in the military who told him, "Whatever you do, Tom, don't go to Vietnam War. That it's going to screw you up." And his friend that he like looked up to or whatever went to Vietnam War and then never came back, and then finally had all these like ideologies and ideals kind of instilled in him, um, that made it so that he wasn't as interested in fighting for private interest. And I guess there was a general consensus that none of the people that were interested in our warring with the Vietnamese were really doing any of those things for any particular reason other than just to or generate traction or functions or generate some sort of monetary monetary production or commercial production for what they call the war machine, which is like essentially the acts of going to war um, in order to steal resources and produce money by killing humans and producing textiles and producing weapons and things like that in order to produce commerce and stimulate the economies, and not just stimulate your own economy, but stimulate other world economies. And that was part of the reason that my dad never went to war. And my dad burnt his draft card during the protests in Vietnam and stuff like that. And I was told that if you burn your draft card in public, that the CIA would take pictures of you, and then you would be the first person to go. I was also told that Canada was one of the places that was granting amnesty to people that didn't want to participate in the draft and go to war on behalf of the North American military. And they offered amnesty and asylum to different North American individuals that just didn't want to go to the Vietnam War. It was one of the reasons that I had taken an interest in coming to Canada. And there was one time before where I jumped on a bus to come up to Canada, but I was told that if I had a warrant when I was on the bus, that they wouldn't let me across into the country. So I wound up in Montana instead, and I started getting harassed by teams of FBI and military agents associated with a Robert Mueller, who is the purported head of the FBI. Apparently, there's some sort of connection to the people that I thought was my family, or I thought were my family, and military factions and military agents. I have like something of a stepdad figure through my mother, Marina Marcial, who sort of like loosely connected to this guy. He lives with her and she lives with him, and they're kind of like boyfriend and girlfriend, kind of married or whatever. And he seems to have some sort of connection to European bloodlines that are associated with the oppression of Mexico. And I've seen pictures of this Pancho Villa character, and he sort of looks like Pancho Villa, and he sort of looks like a Russian European, but he also actually physically resembles the character purported as Che Guevara by according to like Cuban history or whatever. And I guess Che Guevara wasn't ever really a native. And I guess maybe the answer is that he really caused more problems for the natives and the indigenous of Cuba than he ever actually created traction or actually ever initiated any differences for the true native inhabitants of Cuba and the Dominican Republic and Brazil and the Honduras. And I'm here in Montreal trying to fight this case in order to amend their laws to expose the ghost technology and expose not just the ghost technology, but all the different technological advancements that they've buried, that they essentially told somebody that they were burying specifically for the liberation movement that is tied to the validation of the reenactment of the Hebrews' deliverance from the hands of Pharaoh. It's the reason that there's pyramids in Mesoamerica. It's the reason that there's pyramids in Giza, and it's the reason that there's an obelisk in Washington, D.C. So there seems to be some sort of connection with oppression and Arabs. So there's also a connection between the European cultures of like the dominant European countries and like Arab influence and Arab culture. And there seems to be like this obsession or this interest in Arabs. Right now, from what I understand or from all the information that I take, there seems to be some sort of dominant influence in Germany from some sort of Arab faction or Arab occult movement. It seems like it's something that they're coming pretty obvious with. And I don't really know how sincere they are about interest towards Arabs or not having interest towards Arabs. It's quite possible that the head European family is a purebred European family and that they look down at the Arabs like they look down at the Africans and they look down at the indigenous natives of these territories. I'm not completely certain. So this is my life, and I'm just touching base, and I want to record a sort of a log. I talk on the phone with some of the clerks from the Federal Court of Appeal office, and there's a ghost agent on me that won't let me clearly think or understand exactly what he's telling me. when I sit down to write my federal court of appeal replies and submissions, I have all the evidence, but I can't quite get it to the point that I need to get it so that they're responding to me actively or within their rules or within their guidelines. And it's because of this ghost entourage that's on me, which means these military factions that are here are in fact transgressing against the rights of not just Canadians, but also transgressing against the rights of North Americans, and also transgressing against the rights of the French, Canadian, and against the English, German, French, Italian, and other European nations that have a problem with being artificially inseminated and engineered against their will, and also have a problem with having to do things like rape members of their own community in order to have seats of authority or seats of power. Because essentially, those seem to be the kind of deals that they make in order to facilitate those kinds of things. Either that, or you have to be a conditioned soldier, which is mentally conditioned to be completely loyal to the state. There's not a whole lot else that I could do except take my case to the Supreme Court case, but they're essentially using the DEA, NSA, and Department of Defense, and it looks like maybe corrupt British intelligence officials to isolate me. The people of France have something to do with it. I had gone to France one time before, and it seemed like I was sort of like warmly accepted, with the exception of some rather insulting things. Like I ate at a restaurant called the Bistro Boucher, and the Bistro Boucher was actually the name of like a Yu-Gi-Oh monster that was like a Yu-Gi-Oh card. And there was actually one incident in my youth when a ghost agent made me masturbate to a corpse because of a Yu-Gi-Oh monster that was called the Dark Necrophere. And I had no real like arousal towards dead bodies or anything like that. And the dead body was a blonde, blue-eyed German girl. For those people that are interested, or Norse girl, or synthetic Norse girl, or whatever, which means somebody was deliberately being disrespectful. I don't know if they were being disrespectful of the German French, or if they were being disrespectful of specifically me, or who they were being disrespectful of, but they were intentionally being disrespectful. And I had the duck, incidentally, and it tasted like it was microwaved, and it wasn't very good. So, whatever. I also I have like a lot to say. Like, I'm the evidence that the people of the world need to prove that they are genetically enslaved, and that they need help, and that they need to be liberated, and that they have these illegal ghost neural chip implants installed in their brains, and they have no way to remove them, and their leaders have no way to remove them. And no matter how dominant or technologically proficient their leaders or their soldiers seem to be, they're still in some way finding themselves in the hands of some oppressor who doesn't mean to do anything except use them for his own purposes. And it seems like this purpose of this operation was just to perpetuate slavery, but they won't let me die. And it's like frustrating because I'm in this position where they're making me miserable and they're not letting me accomplish or do anything. And I'm not really allowed to train. I'm not really allowed to read. I'm not really allowed to draw. I'm not really allowed to write poetry. I'm not really allowed to even watch my cartoons. And someone's always harassing me. And I'm not at all interested in signing up for their state jobs. I'm not at all interested in serving their state if they're not going to expose this technology and do the utopian thing as purported by the Jewish and Muslim faith. And it doesn't seem like they're interested in that, which means I'm not interested in them. I'm not getting married, and I have no purpose out here in their world, so I don't understand why they would make me or why they would need me for anything. But they won't let me die, because I should have died of cardiac arrest like 12 years ago, 12 years ago, 8 years ago or something. My body is failing. I have diabetes. My pancreas doesn't technically produce insulin. and there's all these things that are wrong with me, and somebody's intentionally keeping me alive. Maybe it's a digital environment. I don't really know. If it's a digital environment, it doesn't make sense why they have such a problem with me working out. But stranger things have obviously happened to me, and stranger things are gonna keep happening to me, and whatever. Um, so, I guess this is my journal check-in. The Federal Court of Appeal has denied my claim. I don't think that the real Federal Court of Appeal has gotten my claim. I think that they intend to run me out of the territory after building some sort of groundwork with my actual occupation in this territory, and then run me out and then bring in a clone copy of me in which they use to engage English and French soldiers and agents and German soldiers and agents, and actually murder them for trying to facilitate some sort of traction with some sort of operation. This operation at least goes back to World War II with the Nazi Holocaust and the Germans' assault on the purported Jewish people. I am purportedly Jewish. There seems to be some sort of connection between the Germans and the Persians, which is why Franz Ferdinand is called the Archduke of Prussia. There seems to be some sort of loose connection between Prussia and Persians. I don't really understand. They call Germany in Spanish Alemania, but I know at one point in time it was called Hermania, and that's why it's called an hermano. And an hermano is a brother, hermana is a sister, and somebody changed the name of Germany, Hermania, so that I wouldn't understand it or I wouldn't know it. I am purportedly German, and I'm purportedly some sort of Middle Eastern amalgamation of Mediterranean Middle Eastern amalgamation of Arab, Indian, and all these other things. And I guess the swastika was an Eastern mysticism symbol. And so there's some sort of presence of Indian Arabs in Germany. There's some connection to Persians and connections to Germans. I think that I am a synthetic gene pool. Maybe I'm organically pooled, or maybe I only resemble those things. I don't really understand my purpose to these people. I mean, they overthrow countries and destabilize economies, and they murder dictators after installing them. And there's just I just don't understand what the hell these people want if they don't want to build a utopian era. It seems like they're just wasting my time, and I, at this point, would much rather be dead if I can't do the things that I'm supposed to do. I would rather work towards building the utopian era, and I would rather train to fight and kill the enemies of humanity and the enemies of God, because I was fashioned in the likeness of messengers of God. There seems to be some sort of like screwed up, deranged, like Greek occult like faction that is like intent on making me this old embittered man who isn't useful to anybody and is just like wise beyond his years, for having endured being betrayed by humanity, and because humans suck, and because women are bitches, and because men chase their dicks, and because Europeans are purportedly all gay, and all their more terrifying leaders and rulers are gay, and just like, what the fuck, dude? It's just like, I seem to be tied to the Big Ben clock tower, which I know was initially named after Queen Victoria, and then they seem to have like called the bell in the tower Big Benjamin or Big Ben or whatever. I was like named after the clock tower, and I was named after a book called The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. I was named apparently after all these different things, and somebody had named me. My family wasn't even the people that named me, which was why there was all these artists like Benny King from Benny King and the Drifters. He has songs that allude to my daughter and my daughter being kidnapped, like My Girl. There's also this song that alludes to the betrayal of Christ by Kiss, by Judas Iscariot, and it's called Magic Moment, which alludes to the Maybach Car Company. Maybach Car Company and Masters of Engineers. Their cars seem to be the most expensive cars on the face of the earth, purportedly available to the general public or general population, but not really available to the general population because no one could afford a car like that. But there seems to be some sort of connections between German engineering and the intelligence design principles, and it's part of the reason that my faith in God is so well founded and so grounded. Even if Judaism and Islam aren't as old as they purport them to be, I believe that there has to be a group of Indian, Arab, and German engineers somewhere that do sort of hold true to these monotheistic ideas and values that need me to do this, and if I don't do this, then everyone on the face of the earth is going to starve, which I don't want. Germany has a really bad track record with this. I, in fact, see that they destroyed their own economy with World War II and then used the money to fund the establishment of Israel at the expense of their middle and lower classes. So getting rid of their middle and lower classes doesn't sound to be a very big deal to Germans, which is troubling to me. I don't condone at all this behavior, and I'm not okay with that. There seems to be similar attitudes that have spread throughout like America and England because of some occupying force associated with the Germans and with the Dutch. It also sort of sounds like maybe England is occupied by Italy. There's all these little allusions and culture and stuff that kind of alludes to the idea that there is an Italian occupation of England that is feminizing of the English. There's just all these really messed up stuff that sort of seems to be doing, they sort of seem to be doing to the English. They don't have a reputation of being the brightest, and they're sort of like mindless, big muscled bullies that don't know what the fuck they're doing. I guess, it's like the Italian guys are like the guys that wake up and for breakfast have a little square of chocolate and an espresso. And I don't know, somebody somewhere is saying that most European men wake up for breakfast and have a dick. And they've literally like came to Canada and North America and then just fucking squatted a big old fat shit here and said, this is where I'm gonna shit. So this is what I'm here doing, and this is what I'm trying to accomplish and what I'm trying to get done. I'm trying to expose this ghost technologies. I'm trying to be of service to Europe. I am European, purportedly European-blooded as well, and I don't really want to have a reputation for being a big faggot, although it seems to be okay to some of these Canadian militant groups and Canadian national security agents and their gay leaders or whatever. They're vicious and they're intent on criminality, and they don't seem to intend to run a reliable or transparent state, and it's something that I cannot condone. I do not wish to be a symbol of oppression, and I do not wish to participate in further oppressing or perpetuating the oppression of natives or Africans or English or Germans or French, whether they're synthetic or organically pulled or whatever. I have a big problem with all these people, and they keep getting in the way of my doing simple things like my paperwork. I'm always forgetting things all over the place. They're getting in the way of my training, and they're getting in the way of my reading. And they don't really seem to have respect for anything. It seems like there's a big network of homosexuals that have infiltrated every society, and they're intent on like harming the general population using this homosexual labor force because of the Jewish and religious ideas and philosophies. There seems to be some sort of connection between the Jewish and Islamic faiths and ideals of men not being sodomized and being capable of attaining a status associated with prophetic status. But somebody somewhere is so afraid of those things that they've actually created a system where they homosexually induce men into fornicating with other men. So whatever, that's what I'm dealing with, and I'm trying to stand up to this government body here in Montreal over these things, and they keep ignoring me. And it's time to take my Supreme Court. It's time to take my case to the Supreme Court, and which I am going to do. I think I'm just following suit. If they don't give me asylum status, then I'm not going to make it my goal to go to England. I'm not interested in playing their games. This is a serious thing for me. This is a serious thing, and I understand that. I honestly, I honestly don't have any intention of turning my back on an opportunity to help the Spanish or to help the Germans or to help the French that need help and that would honestly help me to realize this utopian ideal. Um, I've been sort of led into this idea or belief that the reason that the grandfathers of European societies did this was that so that their sons would never fall into the hands of enslavement and bondage, and it seems to be the theme in the Torah, which is why I'm following through with some of these things. But these people are extremely disrespectful, and these people abuse me, and I'm simply not going to tolerate that. I'm not going to go to Europe on a limited budget and get stuck out there. I'm not okay with that. I'm not going to do those things. So if you're not going to give me asylum status, then I'm essentially stuck here. And if the people of Spain and people of Russia and people of Germany need my help, then they're going to have to do something, because I'm not going to get there on that kind of money, especially because I don't think I'm particularly capable of securing jobs and securing visas. And after my whatever it is that I do out there is done, what am I going to do next? I mean, here I go to the places like, UN offices or whatever, or I go to like, and I haven't been to the UN office yet, but I go to like the office buildings of all these different like social government programs, and all the people there are people tied to the FBI. I know that they've already set up similar situations in Germany, where if I go to try to talk to somebody or like some sort of German government agency about the illegal ghost technology and the ghost neural chip implants, and tell them that I have proof that I'm an engineered clone slave and that I'm supposed to be here helping to, liberate them cerebrally and genetically, they're just going to be like, oh, I don't really know what you're talking about. And I love Robert Mueller, even though he takes 3 dicks at a time and things like that. And I don't know what else. What else can I do for you, humanity? What else can I do for you, mankind? I mean, I know you need somebody to have like loyalty to those legislative things, and I have loyalty to the utopian thing, which means that black people have to move back to Africa, and the Germans people have to move out of Australia, New Zealand, and Africa. And there's no way they would ever do that. There's no way they would ever do that. If anybody can make them do that, it seems to be like I can be the one to make them do that. I know that I'm not born from any royal bloodlines or anything like that, because there's no way anybody would ever allow for their royalty to be treated like that. I really don't know what these people want with me or why they created me, but they kidnapped my son and they kidnapped my daughter, and they seem to be intending to use them for something, which means that they're literally inhibiting the consciousness of people in the future somewhere else. Which means that this is probably happening again with a bunch of these morons, or maybe not these morons, but other morons, kids and stuff like that, and they're using like my bloodline to gain some sort of political influence or political traction with a bunch of people that sort of have similar beliefs or something like that. But I don't not believe that these guys are a bunch of idiots. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but the one thing that I don't do is I don't rape people's kids for money. And the other thing that I don't do is I don't make somebody's life miserable or make somebody discontent simply because it's gratifying to my ego or gratifying to me financially. All the disrespect that I've served up to their purported monarchs or their purported governments or their purported people has been in retaliation for all this abuse that I've endured while I've been here. I came here with just the intention of seeking asylum status, and I told my story, and I just keep getting ignored. And nobody seems to really want to help me because of all the thing that it ensues, and nobody's really willing to answer for the things they've done. So here I am, Benjamin Wilford Brown. I have a lot more to tell you, but this is all I'm going to do for the moment. And I just hope somebody's watching, and I hope that this is, goes down in somebody's record somewhere. All right, bye.